You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Everybody, that music means we are back once again here in the studio today, firing up the microphones. You know, they decided we didn't do enough chatting and interviewing at the big options industry conference last week. I still have a little bit of voice left, so the producers decided to throw me to the wolves once again, back on the interview circuit. But you know what? It is a fascinating topic, and indeed one that is certainly top of mind for a lot of you folks out there. Yes, we're going to talk about the potential onset of 24-hour trading. Will it happen? What does that mean for you folks out there who are trading these markets all the time? Do you even want to? We'll get to all that fun and a whole bunch more today on the old interview show. And joining me to help discuss this very timely topic is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Brian Hyndman, the CEO of Blue Ocean Technologies. Brian, welcome to the Options Insider Radio Network.
Thanks for having me today. Happy to be here.
And Brian, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give us a bit of an overview of your background in the space, as well as what it is you folks do at Blue Ocean Technologies.
Sure. My background in the space, I started in electronic trading back in 1998, where I started a company called Brute with Bob Greifeld. We then sold it to NASDAQ in 2004. I ran the NASDAQ U.S. equity business and the global data business for many years. And then I started here at Blue Ocean in 2021. And basically, we're an alternative trading system that trades U.S. equities from 8 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning. So we round out the day so equities can trade 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. In particular, we give Asian investors the ability to trade U.S. stocks during their daytime hours, but we give all investors the ability to manage their risk real time.
Well, the tagline on your website says it all there, Brian. It says, you're making trading possible all night long. An intriguing prospect. Let's get into that a little bit more. In fact, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it is very timely that we are chatting now because I am just back from the options industry conference last week. I do still have a little bit of voice left. And what was interesting about it is we asked our audience heading into the conference last week, what do you want us to talk about? This is our moment to really pick the brains of all the movers and shakers in the world of options and derivatives here in the US. And what ended up taking it, Brian, with 45.8% of the vote was the potential onset of 24-hour stock and option trading. It even managed to beat 0 day. Everything 0 day is hot now, Brian. But you know what? 24-hour trading even beat that. 0 DTE options came in with 41.7% of the vote, so they came in a very close number two. The third place, a distant third, was 8.3% for can the volume surge, the options volume surge continue, and then 4.2% writing in for other. A lot of you writing in for the potential for options on the Bitcoin ETF. So, Brian, what do you think? 24-hour trading so hot, it even beat all things 0 day, sir, with our audience.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, we've been at it for several years. Our audience in the U.S., all of our U.S. registered broker-dealers want to trade 24 hours a day. And like I said, people on the other side of the globe, even more so. Some of my subscribers, market data subscribers in South Korea, they think the potential is where it could be 1 to 2 billion shares that are traded overnight.
Well, let's get into that then, because as I mentioned, this is a timely debate, but it's not a new debate, really. I mean, I remember debating this back when I was on the SIBO, in the late 90s and into the 2000s. People were debating it even before then. And it's hot again, I think, because NYSE put out that survey. Of course, the SEC debating it with some of the new exchanges they're thinking about approving. So it is very timely again, but not a new debate out there. Now, you've been part of the scene for a while, as you mentioned there, Brian. So why don't we start there? Why don't you give our audience maybe a little bit of an overview, maybe, dare I say it, a history lesson of all things 24-hour trading and how this debate has evolved over the years?
Yeah, I mean, when I first thought about trading 24 hours a day, I was running the stock market, and I spoke to Bob Greifeld about it. And he said, well, why don't you poll your customers, and we'll figure out if we want to make the investment. And I went out and spoke to our customers and call it 2010, 2012. They said, listen, I just want to go home. I don't want to trade around the clock. I want to go home at 5 o'clock. Thanks, but no thanks. I get enough liquidity throughout the day. Since then, the world has changed, though, right? People want what they want when they want it. If I want something delivered, to my doorstep today from Amazon, I can get it almost within 2 or 3 hours, right? Why does someone have to wait until 9:30 in the morning for some person to ring the bell to start trading and to manage their risk? Our customers and subscribers start trading Sunday night at 8 o'clock. If there's an episodic event where a Boeing door flies off a plane, they can go ahead and manage their risk on Sunday night. They don't have to wait for the stock market to open up on Monday morning.
So you think really that the pandemic kind of changed the game? It proved, at the very least, that it's technically feasible to run these markets fully electronic, and then maybe also that the audience has changed a little bit as well there, Brian?
Yeah, the pandemic, technology, cloud offerings, handheld devices, all of that contributed to where people don't have to be home on their, PC at their desk to trade. Everybody's on their handheld devices around the globe, with our data being streamed either directly to our subscribers or using a redistributor like Active or ICE or Refinitiv, and get real-time market data and trade on demand.
As you mentioned, I do think it kind of depends on your point of entry into the marketplace as well. As you mentioned, the audience has kind of evolved. We've certainly seen that on our network as well. We launched a crypto derivative show around the 2018 timeframe. And for that audience, many of them who are crypto native coming to these markets, the traditional markets for the first time, they're surprised. They have an expectation that everything is 24/7, like the crypto market. So for them, this is kind of old school that we have a bell that opens to ring it and a bell to close it. So it does seem maybe we're talking about two contrasting audiences here, Brian. Let's say the newer school, the newer entrants who just expect it. And as you mentioned, maybe some of the more institutional, some of the more savvy audience out there who, you're right, maybe they value that respite there, Brian.
Yeah, I could see that they might want to value the respite. It's not for everybody, but for people that want to trade U.S. equities on the other side of the world, we give them an offering. And what's interesting for your audience is that there's an appetite to trade options overnight, too. We're hearing that loud and clear from the Asia-Pac customers.
Funny you mentioned our audience. I want to get to the options in a second as well, because that is, of course, near and dear to our hearts. But we polled our audience on this topic as well. And we speak to a very options-savvy audience. So you might be forgiven for thinking, these are hardcore traders. They want content all the time. They want to trade all the time. So you might expect them to say, if we asked them right after the NYSE posted their poll, we posted ours. We said, hey, do you think stocks should trade 24 hours a day? Basic, very straightforward question. And again, Brian, you'd be forgiven for assuming they would be overwhelming 100% yes. But actually, it was the opposite. 69.8% said no. Only 30.2% said yes, which is kind of interesting. We know our audience. We've engaged with them quite a bit. We know that we have a lot of pros out there, first off. So as you mentioned, some of those are still reticent to staff up and deal with the headaches, the logistical headaches that come from 24-hour trading. And there are a lot of the savvier retail as well, who maybe post-pandemic have also come to value as we said, that respite, a little bit of a break from the markets, the constant pinging you get in crypto and some of the futures markets, it can be a little bit oppressive sometimes. So Brian, are you surprised that nearly 70% of our audience said no, they don't want it?
No, I'm really not surprised because I bet most of your audience is probably U.S. based. So I'm not surprised by that. And same thing happened at NASDAQ when I asked our audience. They said, no, we just want to go home. We want the respite. But it's really for the investors on the other side of the world that want to have access to NVIDIA, Microsoft, Tesla. They're not just trading 500 stocks on any given night. They trade close to 5,000 different securities on any given night.
So for that U.S.-based customer who's maybe not going to trade these, if these are predominantly aimed at overseas, then the question becomes, why should they care? Why should they care if the Korean customer is putting up a block of, 10,000 shares of Tesla at 2 a.m, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think they need to care because there's going to be a dislocation from where the stock closed on the primary exchange or trading in the U.S. to where it's opening up on Blue Ocean. Have to care.
That raises an interesting question as well. A lot of people have also expressed opposition to this because they say, it's technically feasible. We can do it. We can make these markets open. But, what kind of experience will people get? If you look at the crypto markets as an analog, the weekend and overnight sessions tend to be pretty thin, pretty illiquid, and you might get some outsized moves in those illiquid markets as a result. So I guess the question then becomes, maybe we can do it, but should we do it if the end experience isn't exactly optimal? Is that going to end up hurting the markets in the long run? What do you say to critics who say that, Brian?
It's fair criticism, and we have market makers like Virtu and Jane Street making two-sided markets, providing liquidity. We don't let a stock swing more than 20% away from our 730 reference price, and you can only enter day limit orders. So you can't put a market order in that's going to rip through a thinly traded book and move 50 or 80%. It's not going to happen on Blue Ocean. It looks very much like the pre and the post. And quite frankly, some of the spreads on some of the more active stocks like, NVIDIA and Tesla and Microsoft, they're a penny wide.
It's funny you mentioned that as well, because I had a chance last week to chat with the Robinhood folks, and they kind of went into detail about their offering. They're already approximating a lot of this functionality now on their platform with effectively 24-hour trading. And I initially assumed it was just a handful of top names, but they said it was, I think, somewhere close to 1,000 names that they offer this on now. So it's deeper than you might expect. And they were saying the liquidity has been decent. It's not the same as the intraday session, but they were surprised at how robust it's been and actually how popular it's been. And maybe on some of the weekend sessions when some news breaks, they're kind of the only game in town. So I suppose, do you look to that as maybe a bit of a vanguard there, Brian, that look, Robinhood is doing it. They haven't set the world on fire yet. Maybe there's room to expand in that area?
Yeah, I think it's more than an experiment. They're committed to the overnight trading. They're committed to, democratizing trading, around the globe. And, by their customers wanting to trade 1,000 different securities, it tells me that it's real and it's here to stay.
Well, you mentioned the options side of the game. That's obviously near and dear to the hearts of our audience as well. At the end of the day, all roads lead to the options market for our listeners. And we asked them, bear in mind, 70% of them nearly said they don't want 24-hour trading. But that in mind, we asked them, if it does come to pass, in what format should it happen? Because we've heard a lot of differing opinions on how 24-hour or extended hours options trading should happen. We've heard limited pilots, limited to a handful of the most liquid names, maybe limited to certain times of the year during earnings season, outside of earnings season, or maybe just a free-for-all, full 24/5 or 24/7 trading. And when we asked our audience that, we said, if stock hours go 24/7, what should the options market do? And they said it should follow suit. Full 24-hour trading, 57.1%. About a third said they should go in the high volume names only, and then a smattering for other things like earnings season only. So, Brian, like we said, you've been in these trenches for a while. If we do get the changes on the stock front, what do you think that means for the options market? Will it follow suit and just go 24/7 or 24/5, or do you think it'll be some other more maybe limited pilot?
Yeah, I don't know, how quickly they're going to roll it out. I know the demand is there overseas. I think, put a gun to my head, I would say, roll it out in a limited capacity with some of the more active names, the VIX, the SPYs, the Qs. Let's see if we can get a user base there, and then you could, expand the rollout. But there's definite interest to trade U.S. options overnight.
I will say, talking a lot of exchanges last week, and obviously they're all pretty much for-profit public entities now. So they see exactly what you're talking about. They see the dollar signs in the international markets, and they want to cater to them. So I suppose if there is an arrow in your quiver in your favor there, Brian, it would be that all these for-profit companies really want to ease the onboarding of these international customers. Do you think at the end of the day that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, Brian?
Yeah, I think some of them do. Like Adina Friedman at NASDAQ, she didn't necessarily see the gold. She's focused on different business lines. It'll be interesting to hear what the NYSE gets back from their survey. But I know that some of the other exchanges are looking at it, and the competition is going to come. Right now, we're the only player out there trading in the overnight space. But if these guys in Korea and Hong Kong are close to being right, and there's 500 million to 1 billion shares being traded, we're going to get more competition, and it'll likely be another ATS or an exchange.
Now, if you were a betting man, Brian, if we were saying right now we're sitting here, early May in 2024, seeing all the tea leaves that are being read out there, if you had to place a wager, when do you think we would see this? Do you think it could be as soon as this year? Is this a couple of years out? What are we talking about here?
I get asked the question a lot. As a betting man, I would say the competition's coming probably 12 to 18 months out.
12 to 18 months. Okay, so that's a fairly short-term time horizon, especially when you're talking about the regulatory environment in the U.S. These things could take decades. So 12 to 18 months, and then maybe some sort of limited options pilot following on the heels of that, listeners. So there you go, listeners. You've weighed in the past about 24-hour trading. I think it's fair to say it's still a divisive topic out there with a lot of you, but here's a little more information, a little bit more data on that front. Before we roll out, Brian, I'm curious, is there anything we didn't touch on today, or perhaps a little bit of data, a little bit of experience you've seen from dealing with these markets that you think would interest our listeners? Now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect arena just yet, right? Trade reporting is batched to the following morning. We have to batch up our trades and submit them to NSCC at 4 o'clock. And I know that they're looking to expand their hours. Then you have corporate actions. We start trading next day at 8 o'clock. If there's a 2-for-1 stock split on Tesla, we have to kind of halt that stock on Blue Ocean because there's no standardization in the industry around corporate actions and when they need to take place. So we're blazing the path. We're being pioneers here, but we've made great progress with trading in the overnight space. Equities are trading 24 by 5, and I think the processes just get better going forward.
Well, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day here to discuss this. I don't think this is going to be the last time we're going to talk 24-hour trading in the next 12 to 18 months, Brian. So I have a feeling you and I will be chatting again. In the meantime, though, if folks want to learn more about what you folks have to offer on the 24-hour trading front, where should they go? What should they do?
They can visit our website, www.blueoceantechnologies-tech.io. We'd be happy to set up a call with them.
There you go. Check them out over there at Blue Ocean Technologies, or give them a follow on the old Twitter as well at Blue Ocean ATS, all one word, over there on the X, as the cool kids call it these days. That music means we are done for today here on the old network. Don't worry, if you want more interview content coming your way, that will be hitting the Pro first from the OIC, as well as all the panel audio from OIC as well. So if you couldn't make it down to Asheville last week, or perhaps, you just missed a session, it'll all be there for you. That's how much we like you folks. We saved you the registration fee and the trip and the hotel. Just check out the network. That'll be hitting the Pro side first as well. So head on over to the Pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. You got all the interviews there first, as well as, of course, all the panel audio. They'll be rolling out to the rest of the network. So stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.